Yes, so TSMC has just announced its latest earnings, and during its earnings call, they did mention about how they are going to deal with the pricing for its made in US chips. As you can see from here, TSMC do plan to further expand its investment in the States. They plan to have a further 165 billion to power the future of AI, and this will result to having 3 or 4 fabs going forward. So if you would look at the latest guidance, they have a gross profit margin of between 57% to 59% for the next quarter. This is their guidance, right? And also for the operating profit margin to be between 47% and 49%. What this tells us is that uh, if you were to compare with the profit margins of the operating profit margins for Q2 of 2023 of 42%, they do plan to increase their profit margin over time, which means that there is going to be a price hike. There's some rumors that TSMC is reportedly plans to have a 30% price hike for its 4 nanometer chips production at its Arizona plant. During the earnings call, when they are being asked about how they are going to deal with the pricing for the made in US chips, they did mention that for TSMC as a company, it's very important that they have a healthy margin on top of all the cost that comes with operating the fabs in the US. Because when you were to operate the fabs in the US, you have higher labor costs, you have stricter regulations, the utility is more expensive, and definitely the real estate is way more expensive than if you were to compare it to Taiwan. So all in all, the price of creating and making a chip in the US is way more expensive. Plus, to have a healthy margin, the price will definitely need to go up. So they already mentioned this, and this means that the prices for the US chips is definitely going to be higher, and therefore, if Nvidia were to get the made in US chips, it's going to be more expensive. Just think about it, right? Like for example, for like sneakers, New Balance have those that is being made in the US and those that's made in other countries, for Vietnam or China. And you realize that the prices that is being made in the shoes that is being made in the US by New Balance is way more expensive. For example, around $300 compared to the ones that's being made in China, which cost around $100. And that is why Nvidia is going to be paying a high price for getting the chips that's being made in the US from TSMC. But nevertheless, uh, you can say that they can also get the chips from Taiwan, as per usual. But now, while we are planning for a semiconductor tariffs from Donald Trump, most likely once the tariff is being put into place, Nvidia will also be paying a higher price for the chips that's coming from Taiwan. And if we are, if you were to understand how the tariffs works, is that the chips will be shipped out from Taiwan, and after it after it lands in the port in the States, Nvidia has to pay the additional tariff fees before they can collect the chips. That means that this will be additional cost for Nvidia. Even if TSMC were to uh, take up a slight portion of the tariffs, it's highly unlikely they are able to do much about it. There's is very highly unlikely that they are able to do much about it. Furthermore, as they have already shared, right, that they will most likely not uh, reduce their profit margin, since they really do need a healthy margin to keep up with this type of capital intensive businesses. So I guess we can safely assume that the profit margin for Nvidia is going to be hit. But I think there's a silver lining here. There's a possibility that the whole industry will be hit. The whole AI industry will be hit because Nvidia most likely will also pass down some of the costs to their customers, which is like for example Meta or Microsoft. And Microsoft and Meta could further push down the increase in prices to the end consumer. So everyone in the chain is going to be hit by this increase, but it's highly likely that everyone will suffer in this process, and at the end of the day, the end user will also have to pay a portion of the tariffs or the higher cost that is being uh, at, at at the end of the day, the end user will most likely have to also pay a higher price due to the increase in the cost of all these chips. So I do believe that going forward for the so I do believe that going forward for the US, so I believe so going forward going forward I do believe that US companies like Nvidia, their profit margin is going to be hit by this. So for us investors, I think we need to keep that in mind, and we need to understand that. And so for us investors, we need to keep that in mind and to expect if there's a compression in terms of the profit margin due to the increase in the cost of acquiring these chips.